Demi Moore's life is often remembered through the lens of Hollywood milestones, box office success, and unforgettable performances that defined an era of cinema. Yet behind the polished images, red carpets, and global recognition lies a far more complex story, one shaped by endurance, reinvention, and emotional survival. Her journey is not simply about becoming one of the most recognizable actresses of her generation, but about navigating a life that began without stability and carried the weight of emotional turbulence long before fame ever arrived. Born in Roswell, New Mexico in 1962, Demi Moore's early world was marked by uncertainty and frequent change. Instead of a foundation of security, she experienced constant movement, shifting households, and fractured family dynamics that left little room for permanence. These early experiences would quietly shape her resilience, influencing how she approached both life and career. As she grew older, Moore entered Hollywood not as someone groomed for stardom, but as a young woman searching for direction and stability. What followed was an extraordinary rise through television and film, leading to some of the most iconic roles of the 1990s. But even at the height of fame, personal struggles, emotional challenges, and public scrutiny continued to follow her. This is the story of a woman who built strength not from comfort, but from disruption. A story of survival, transformation, and ultimately, self-reclamation in a world that often demands perfection while punishing vulnerability. Early life instability, movement, and emotional distance. Demi Moore's early childhood was defined by instability rather than continuity. Raised in a household where emotional and financial security were inconsistent, she experienced a constantly shifting environment that made permanence feel unfamiliar. Her biological father left before she was born, and her upbringing was primarily shaped by her mother and stepfather, both of whom struggled with personal and relational challenges. Frequent relocations became a defining feature of her childhood. Moving from place to place meant constantly adjusting to new schools, new surroundings, and new social environments. For a young child, this lack of rootedness created a sense that nothing in life could be relied upon for long. Stability was not something she knew, it was something she observed in others, but rarely experienced herself. Within the household, emotional turbulence often overshadowed moments of calm. Moore later reflected on how early exposure to adult conflict forced her to mature quickly, absorbing emotional tension that children are not typically equipped to process. These experiences shaped her understanding of resilience, not as a choice, but as a necessity. Despite the challenges, these formative years also cultivated adaptability. Learning to adjust repeatedly to change became an unconscious skill that would later serve her in an unpredictable industry like Hollywood. However, the emotional cost of such early instability lingered, influencing her sense of identity and self-worth well into adulthood. Rebuilding identity beyond roles and public expectations as Demi Moore moved into the later stages of her life and career, a quieter but more profound transformation began to take shape. The external momentum of Hollywood success gradually gave way to an internal process of reassessment. Without the constant pressure of leading roles and public scrutiny at its peak intensity, she began confronting the question that fame often delays rather than answers who she was beyond: achievement, recognition, and performance. This phase of her life was not marked by dramatic reinvention, but by subtle recalibration. She stepped back from the expectation of constant visibility and instead focused on grounding herself in personal stability. Identity for her was no longer something defined by scripts, roles, or public perception. It became something lived privately, shaped by reflection rather than applause. Her memoir, Inside Out, played a significant role in this transformation. Writing allowed her to revisit her life not as fragmented experiences, but as a continuous narrative of survival and growth. By articulating her past, she reclaimed authorship over stories that had long been interpreted by others. This process was not about revisiting pain for spectacle, but about integrating it into a fuller understanding of self. In this period, Moore also redefined success. It was no longer measured by box office numbers or industry validation, but by emotional clarity, personal peace, and the ability to live without constant internal conflict. This shift marked a departure from the external demands of Hollywood and a movement towards something more enduring self-possession. Motherhood and meaning the quiet center of her life amid the turbulence of fame and personal evolution. Motherhood remained one of the most grounding and meaningful aspects of Demi Moore's life. Her role as a mother became a steady anchor through decades of professional intensity and emotional complexity. While Hollywood often demanded fragmentation of attention, her children represented continuity and emotional grounding. Motherhood also reshaped her understanding of responsibility and love. It introduced a different kind of purpose, one that was not tied to performance or recognition, but to presence, care, and emotional availability. In many ways, it offered her a chance to build the kind of stability she had not fully experienced in her own upbringing. Over time, her relationship with her children evolved into one of mutual support and maturity. As they grew into adulthood, the dynamic shifted from caretaking to companionship, allowing for deeper emotional connection and understanding. This evolution reinforced her sense of continuity across generations, breaking cycles of instability that had marked her early life. Motherhood also influenced her broader worldview. It deepened her empathy and reinforced her commitment to causes related to child welfare, emotional health, and recovery support. These values became integrated into both her personal and philanthropic identity. For Demi Moore, motherhood was not separate from her identity as an actress or public figure. It existed alongside it, often serving as the emotional foundation that made everything else possible. It remained one of the most consistent sources of meaning in a life defined by change. Resilience redefined. A life that continues to evolve. Resilience, in Demi Moore's case, is not a single achievement but an ongoing process. Her life demonstrates that survival is not a final state, but a continuous negotiation with change, memory, and identity. What makes her story compelling is not only what she endured, but how she continued to evolve after each chapter of difficulty. Unlike simplified narratives of triumph, her journey reflects complexity. There were periods of extraordinary success, but also moments of withdrawal, reflection, and rebuilding. Each phase contributed to a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. Over time, resilience became less about enduring hardship and more about integrating experience into growth. Her return to acting in recent years reflects this evolved perspective. Rather than chasing validation, she approaches her work with intention and selectivity. Roles are no longer about proving capability, but about alignment with personal truth and creative interest. This shift represents a mature phase of artistry shaped by decades of lived experience. At the same time, her presence in public discourse has softened. She is no longer defined by constant media cycles or industry positioning. Instead, she occupies a space of reflective influence, someone whose history carries weight, but whose present is defined by choice rather than expectation. Demi Moore's resilience ultimately lies in her ability to remain in motion. Not frozen by past identity, not defined solely by past pain, but continuously reshaping what it means to live fully within her own terms. Adolescence, growing up without ground beneath her feet by adolescence. Demi Moore's life had already diverged significantly from that of her peers. While others navigated teenage life with relative stability, she was managing responsibilities and emotional burdens far beyond her years. Education became inconsistent due to frequent moves, and her sense of belonging remained fragile. At a young age, she made the decision to leave traditional schooling behind. This was not a simple act of rebellion, but rather a reflection of a life that already felt accelerated and unstructured. She entered adulthood early, stepping into a world where survival depended on immediate action rather than long-term planning. Work became a necessity rather than a choice. She took on various jobs, including modeling and office work, often prioritizing financial survival over comfort or aspiration. The transition into independence was abrupt and unforgiving. Without a safety net, she learned quickly how to navigate uncertainty, even when it came at the cost of emotional exhaustion. During this period, Moore also began to develop an inner sense of determination. While life offered little stability externally, internally she began cultivating a belief that she would need to rely on herself. This mindset, shaped by necessity, would later become both a source of strength and a reminder of early isolation. Adolescence, for her, was not a period of carefree growth. It was a survival phase that forced rapid emotional development in an environment that offered little protection. Early career, entering a world that demanded everything. Demi Moore's entry into the entertainment industry came through persistence rather than privilege. She began with modeling and small acting opportunities, gradually working her way into television roles. Each step forward required not only talent but endurance, as competition was intense and rejection frequent. Her early work in television provided a crucial foundation. She gained visibility, experience, and the opportunity to refine her craft. However, the industry she entered was demanding and often unforgiving, particularly for young women attempting to establish themselves without established connections. Despite these challenges, Moore continued pushing forward. Her determination to succeed was fueled not only by ambition, but also by the need to create stability in a life that had rarely offered it. Acting became more than a profession. It became a path toward independence and self-definition. During these formative career years, she learned how image and perception played a significant role in Hollywood's success. She adapted quickly, developing both professional discipline and emotional resilience. Each audition, each role, and each rejection contributed to shaping her understanding of the industry's realities. What distinguished her early trajectory was not immediate success, but persistence. She remained committed even when progress was slow, laying the groundwork for the breakthrough that would soon change everything. Breakthrough in stardom, from television to global recognition. Demi Moore's rise to prominence accelerated with her role on the television series General Hospital, where she gained significant attention and industry credibility. This opportunity marked her transition from aspiring actress to recognized talent, opening doors to larger projects and film roles. Her true breakthrough in cinema came with Ghost 1990, a film that became a global phenomenon. The success of the movie elevated her into international stardom, establishing her as one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. The role demonstrated not only her acting ability, but also her emotional range, solidifying her place in the industry. Following this success, Moore took on a series of high-profile roles that defined 1990 cinema. Films such as A Few Good Men and Indecent Proposal positioned her at the center of cultural conversations, while also subjecting her to intense public scrutiny. Her performances often challenged traditional expectations of female roles in Hollywood. She portrayed characters with strength, complexity, and emotional depth, contributing to a broader shift in how women were represented on screen. However, with increased visibility came increased pressure. Every role, choice, and public appearance was analyzed, and the weight of expectation grew heavier as her fame expanded. Hollywood peak power, pressure, and public scrutiny at the height of her career in the 1990s. Demi Moore became one of the highest paid and most influential actresses in Hollywood. Her success symbolized a shift in the industry, where women began commanding greater recognition and financial parity in leading roles. Films like Striptease and G.I. Jane showcased her willingness to take risks both physically and professionally. These roles required significant transformation and commitment, reinforcing her reputation as an actress unafraid of challenging material. However, this period was also marked by intense public scrutiny. Her choices were frequently debated in media discourse, often in ways that reflected broader societal attitudes toward women in power. Rather than being viewed solely through artistic merit, her work was sometimes overshadowed by controversy and judgment. Despite this, Moore continued to push boundaries. She consistently selected roles that defied conventional expectations, reinforcing her commitment to artistic risk-taking. Yet the emotional toll of constant public evaluation began to accumulate. The combination of professional success and personal pressure created a complex reality, one where achievement and scrutiny coexisted in equal measure. Personal life, love, loss, and public attention alongside her professional journey, Demi Moore's personal life unfolded under constant public attention. Her relationships, marriages, and family experiences often became topics of media interest, adding another layer of complexity to her already demanding life. Marriage, motherhood, and separation were all part of her lived experience during her years of peak fame. Each chapter brought both moments of joy and periods of difficulty. Navigating these experiences while maintaining a high-profile career required emotional resilience and adaptability. Public perception of her personal life was often shaped by speculation, which made privacy increasingly difficult to maintain. Despite this, Moore continued to prioritize her children and personal growth, even when under scrutiny. Over time, she has spoken openly about challenges related to identity, self-worth, and healing. These reflections have contributed to a broader understanding of her as not just a public figure, but as an individual navigating deeply human experiences. Her personal journey reflects the broader tension between public visibility and private reality, a balance that is difficult for many in the entertainment industry to maintain. Healing and reflection, reclaiming the narrative in later years, Demi Moore shifted her focus toward reflection, healing, and self-understanding. Her memoir, Inside Out, marked a turning point in how she publicly engaged with her past, offering insight into the emotional experiences that shaped her life. Rather than presenting a polished narrative of success, she chose to explore vulnerability, growth, and self-awareness. This act of storytelling allowed her to reclaim aspects of her history in her own voice, rather than through external interpretation. She also began emphasizing wellness practices, personal discipline, and emotional grounding as part of her daily life. These practices supported her ongoing process of self-reconstruction and stability. In addition to personal healing, Moore has been involved in philanthropic efforts, supporting initiatives related to mental health, addiction recovery, and child welfare. These contributions reflect her commitment to using her experiences to support others facing similar challenges. Her later career choices demonstrate a shift from constant visibility to intentional presence, prioritizing meaningful work over public expectation. Legacy and conclusion. Strength beyond the screen, Demi Moore's legacy extends beyond her filmography. While she remains a significant figure in Hollywood history, her life story is ultimately one of resilience, transformation, and enduring self-reinvention. From a childhood shaped by instability to a career defined by groundbreaking roles, she has navigated both extraordinary success and profound personal challenges. Her journey illustrates the complexity of fame, where achievement and emotional cost often coexist. In recent years, her return to screen work has been met with renewed appreciation, not as a reinvention, but as a continuation of a long and evolving career. She remains a figure who commands attention not through spectacle, but through presence and experience. Ultimately, Demi Moore's story is not defined solely by the roles she has played, but by the life she has lived beyond them. It is a story of endurance, self-discovery, and the ongoing process of becoming whole. Her legacy stands as a reminder that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to continue forward despite it.